Welcome to FilmRiot Mondays. Your final reminder, the due date for Monday Challenge is this coming Friday, 12 p.m. CST. And if it is a minute later,
Ryan will camel spit at you. That's what he'll do. So you better watch out. Coming at you live.
I'm a solo videographer who has a 9-to-5 job to pay bills. I find it hard to trust other people's creativity or lack thereof in a collaborative environment. Do I need to grin and bear it? Or is this a sign that I should become a director? Got any tips, advice? One thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that the way that you want to do things isn't necessarily the right way. It's just one of the ways. And a really good director is someone who can tell when something's a good idea, even if it breaks out of his style to some extent, especially if you are someone who's giving notes to other creatives. You need to be able to see through their vision on what they're trying to do to help guide them where they need to go. So that's one thing. As far as directing, I'm not really sure what you're talking about as far as the collaborative environment or what exactly you're doing in the collaborative environment. But if directing is something that you think that you want to do, that you're constantly wanting this ship to steer in a different direction and it drives you nuts, then yeah, maybe you are someone who is internally just wanting to be that creative lead over the entire project. So give it a shot. But when you collaborate, it's like a marriage. There's give and take, there's compromise that has to happen. I mean, even when I'm directing, there are moments of compromise with my actors, with my DP. As you go along this creative process, people aren't robots. Everybody wants to put their thumbprint to some extent, their voice on what is happening. And that's why you assemble the people that you do, because you like their voice, their vision, the way that they do things. And you're bringing that to your project, and then you're kind of shaping it all into one unified goal. But it's a choir, not a solo. You gotta get them all to harmonize, but they're entirely different voices. So just keep that in mind too. With the increase in phone camera quality, do you think smaller, more affordable, and more practical cameras will replace larger and bulkier cameras when it comes to filmmaking? That has been happening for pretty much forever. I mean, cameras started on as these giant things, and then they had to be put in these even bigger things to keep them quiet because sound was introduced. And slowly but surely we keep finding ways, and by we I mean smarter people than me, keep finding ways to make technology smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, look at how small the red body is. It's just teeny tiny. I mean, DSLRs, you got the A7S cameras, which are unbelievable cameras, really great image quality, insane low light. Shane Hurlbut has shot features with the 5D, and often the 5Ds and cameras like them, 1DC and whatnot, are used as B cameras on feature films or for shooting plates, things. So these cameras are being used, even GoPros are used. So this is already happening, and it's gonna keep going in that direction, but technology is also gonna keep going in the direction of 8K, 20,000K, 3D, stereoscopic madness, real life VR, smell-o-vision, God knows what else. So I'm sure that will keep it fluctuating as well. What kind of light can be used for getting that blue or yellow tone in film in dark places? You can turn the color of any light different just by throwing some gels on the front of it, so you get any tungsten light, and you set your camera to that white balance. You have a normal whitish light, but then you throw gels over that, and you're going to shift that to whatever color you want. You can also put your camera at that tungsten level, 3200, and then use something like a daylight balanced light. You're going to get blue, or vice versa. Also, if you can introduce just a little bit of color into the shadows by just putting the slightest bit of, say, steel green on a light, and then just putting that very slight in the background to kind of fill shadows just a little bit, and you're introducing that sort of Hollywood blockbuster blue into the shadows in camera, not just doing it in post. I feel like I'm underutilizing my monopod. Do you have any video where you show its multiple uses? We don't have a video on that, but I do use monopods in a lot of different ways, mostly to get sort of a handheld, not handheld type of look where it's not locked down, obviously, but it's a lot more stable than it would have been if it's just in your hands. So I'll keep that free, keep the head loose as well, and it's giving it that sort of loose, free vibe to it without it being too sloppy. This is really helpful, especially when it comes to stuff like DSLRs, but you can also move it forward and back since it's just that one leg to get sort of jib dolly type moves. Of course, that's restricted to that small bit of movement that you could do before it's starting to get wonky. You can collapse all the legs and use it as almost a stabilizer. I've done that a lot. You can flip it upside down to get really, really low shots and then just flip the image in post. I don't ever use them for short films. I don't think I've ever used a monopod in any of my short films personally, but I think they're extremely useful when it comes to shooting event stuff, things like FilmRiot, whenever we're doing special events for Variant or any of our other projects as well. Last question. Hi Ryan, I'm sure you've covered this at some point in the past and I'm just missing seeing the video, but would you talk a bit about timing in regards to cutting scenes, timing with music, and how you make those decisions to just leave a scene out because the timing doesn't flow? Cheers. I actually just had to cut a joke out of the Ghostbusters sketch, and I cut a few lines even to help the pacing, but the joke was about 20 seconds long and it really slowed down the pace and it felt like it didn't fit within the scene, and you can kind of feel it when things are off. Especially experience helps you feel it when you're watching it even by yourself, but when you're first starting out, a really good way to do it is to show it to somebody who has fresh eyes on the project. They come in and they're watching it, and once that external person who hasn't seen it has come and they're watching it, you watch it in a whole new way, and the moments that aren't working, you really feel it like a gut punch. So I think those things are really important. I try not to show a group of people my project. Those people that I show before I release, I like to show them one or two at a time so I can keep watching it over and over again with those fresh eyes, feeling it differently every single time, and you can kind of feel when something's a little bit too slow. But the difficulty there is to make sure you're not precious. Just because you like a shot doesn't mean it should last more than 2 seconds. So that can hurt sometimes, where this shot is the best shot in the piece, but it should be very short for the pacing and for what's happening. So keep all that in mind. Don't be precious about any one particular thing. Remember that in the end, this is all about audience experience. And even though your shot looks amazing, this person's bored and they're clicking away. So that's ultimately what you need to be keeping in mind. If you're a budding filmmaker, entrepreneur, innovator, domain.com is the place to go when that next idea hits you directly in the face. I know you've heard me say it a ton that the list of available domain extensions is growing, but you now have the opportunity to name your site and build your brand in ways that was never before possible. You can choose from a growing list, 400 plus domain name extensions like .com, .org, .design, and .club. And to show you some love, they're giving you 25% off their already affordable prices. When you get domain names, web hosting, and email, just use the coupon code FilmRiot at checkout. When you think domain names, think domain.com. So that's it for today, which means it's time for my suggestion of the week. This is another post from No Film School. I've talked about them before. If you were not following them, you should be. But they posted talking about this masterclass that Michel Gondry did. He's talking about filmmaking, how he goes about his process, how he deals with actors. A ton of great info is to be had in there. So check that out right here. And until next week, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.